Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Fert and this is Fert Tech. This video is part 3 of PHP The Basics, a tutorial set on PHP syntax and proper technique. You can find the code related to this demonstration on Git. There's a link below in the description, and also you can see a working demonstration of the code following the link in the demonstration as well. I'd like to say thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Today we're going to talk briefly, show you a couple math examples, and get into standard arrays, and briefly touch on a utility that you can use on arrays. So, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to go ahead here and navigate to part 3. As you can see, I've now added the quick link for the YouTube videos for reference. And take a look at our code. So just remember, of course, that we are looking for the code segments between my little commented bracket there that I created. So the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the basic math functionality in PHP. So just like many languages, PHP can do basic math, add, divide, and so on. So I just did a couple of examples here and then echoed the statement out for you so that you could kind of see it works. Pretty straightforward, no problem. So as you can see, 6 plus 1 indeed does equal 7, and hopefully 9 divided by 3 is going to be 3, which, yes, verifies. So perfect, great. Mathematics holds up. Excellent. So, moving on, arrays. So, an array, if you're not familiar with what that is, or if you've never worked with an array in another programming language, I would encourage you to, take a moment to maybe think about what's going on here before you try and dive right into it. So, an array is basically, think of it like a box. And this box has tiny little boxes inside of it. And those tiny boxes have a location. And that location is called an index. And that is basically an array. So, what I've done here is created a basic array for you in 2 different methods so that you can see how these work. So the first method, there are actually 3 different types of arrays that you can create. Of course, the first being a numerical. You can have associative arrays, which we'll talk about later on in a different section, and multi-dimensional, which we'll finish up with the array talk in another section as well. So with your basic array, of course, you're going to need a value or an object. In this case, we use a variable name to store that object, and the object, of course, is an array. So when I say we're using the array assignment method here up in the comment, what I mean by that is, so I use the object notation. I say I want an array, and then I open and close, and then inside the open and closing brackets there, we're going to put our values there. So of course, this value is going to be in position 0, this position 1, 2, and 3. Of course, noting, just remember, as in most programming languages, PHP follows that position 0 is in fact the first position in the array, not index 1. So that throws a lot of people. Just remember, position 0. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and put 4 values into this array. How do you separate the values? In object, when you're initializing using the object assignment method, of course, you just use commas. So you put your first value, then comma, your next value, then comma, your next value. It automatically assigns the index to it, and you're good to go. Another way that you can assign it, which is perfectly acceptable to do it this way, a little bit more drawn out as you can see, but you can initialize the per index. As you can see, I've I've gone ahead and used a identifier there. Remember, your identifier has to start with a $sign. And then I've used the opening and closing bracket here in order to indicate inside of there what index I would like to use. So I've gone ahead here and filled index position 0, position 1, and position 3, or excuse me, position 1, 2, and 3 in the array, which would be index 0, 1, and 2. Of course, we put 1, 2, and last, nachos with meat. All right, so how do you access those values once you put them into an array? Of course, not too difficult to do. Remember before, we had our echo statement, opening, closing quotations there to initialize our string, or excuse me, to indicate that we have a string there. And then we add a period here, another period, of course, and then what we have on the other side there for our closing string where we add a couple of breaks in there. So you might be wondering, okay, well, what's inside of here? Same thing like we did before when I talked about, if you watch the previous videos, this allows us to concatenate a value in between this echo string here. The echo string meaning the value that's going to be passed back to the client, which would be, of course, this whole value here, and then this whole value, and so on and so forth. So what I went ahead and did is to access this value, you simply just place the parameter that you assign to the array along with the index, and then you can access directly. And that works, of course, for both types of initialization methods. So if you create it this way, or you go ahead and create it that way, it works the same. You can obviously see that here in the demonstration. I've gone ahead and echoed out a few statements, concatenated in the values there for you, and let's go ahead and take a look at the live demonstration here. So if you come down here, you can see using different array initializations. I left you a nice example here. And of course, assigning by value, the array, using the object array method at index 2 equals 3. Well, let's make sure. Come back here. Well, sure enough, index 0, 1, 2. There you go. 3. Perfect. That's what we were looking for there. And assigning by index. Well, nachos with meat. Well, let's check, see. Did that work out? Yeah, I believe so. We printed index 2, and nachos with meat. Ha! Look at that. Perfect. So, there you go. Kind of a quick example there of how arrays work with PHP. It's pretty straightforward. If you notice, of course, like I said before, both values can be easily retrieved using the index in the bracket there. So, remember, identifier, open and closing bracket with the index inside. And you can have access to all the values in your array. Just remember, if you don't have a value assigned, it will either return a null value, or depending if you've assigned it to nothing, just remember that all values that you want to use from an array must be assigned in order to get useful information, obviously. So just make sure if you're looping through values with arrays, which I'll show you later in a later video, that you don't extend out of bounds. It's just one thing that you got to be kind of careful there. Alright, so moving on, and lastly, I just wanted to speak briefly about PHP and the different utilities that it offers. There are a lot of very useful and very, very helpful utilities that PHP has for specifically working with an array. I did one quick example for you here. I wanted to show you how you could use array merge to take our two arrays that we had before, basic array and another basic array. We merged them together to create a new array, of course, just assigning a new parameter there with our $sign to indicate to the machine, of course, we want to create a value or an object there. So we store that new array that we created with the array merge function, and we went ahead and echoed it out. So let's go ahead and take a look at our live demonstration, and here we go. So, of course, I just outlined that really quick for you, exactly what we were doing there. And here we go. The newly combined array is array. In position 0 you have 1, then you have 2, then you have 3, and so on. And as you can see here, all the way up to nachos with meat. We are all good to go. So as you can see, arrays hold information, they help you store information, and they help you organize information. They can be extremely powerful when it comes to creating efficient code and effective code. As you become more and more developed with your programming abilities, you'll find that using arrays becomes almost second nature. You'll think, oh, I need to store something, and immediately you're creating an array and adding information, and it becomes a handy little tool in your tool bag of PHP knowledge. So, again, I want to thank you all for watching. Of course, you can catch me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and watch the rest of my videos. If you're feeling like you need some more information on PHP, of course, follow the rest of this tutorial. And as always, code for life.